When I was a kid I got put into foster care because of my abusive stepfather, but he didn't abuse the other two kids he had with my mom, and now my stepsiblings want to reconnect with me, but all I want to do is expose everything to them. I really need an outside perspective on whether I'd be the jerk in this situation. I'm 21M, and I ended up in foster care at 9 years old because of the abuse I suffered at the hands of my stepfather, a man my mom kept choosing over me. Despite all the support and interventions that were supposed to protect me, my mom refused to kick him out. Even after she had a restraining order against him, she still let him back into our lives. Meanwhile, she went on to have 2 more children with this man, my half-brothers, who are now 19, Richie, and 16, James. It got to the point where it was obvious that no matter what she would keep letting him back into our lives and allowing me to be a scapegoat of anything that was wrong in life, and I ended up being removed. After I was removed from the home, my mom was allowed to keep and raise my brothers, as if nothing had happened. From what I know, my stepdad never laid a hand on them. My mom and this man are still together, I know because I've checked her Facebook more times than I'd like to admit. Growing up, it was devastating to realize that my mom would rather give me up than fight for me. She could have kept me if she'd just left him, but she didn't. This abandonment left me with deep scars and a lot of issues to deal with as I grew up. It didn't help that she cut off all contact with me almost as soon as I was placed in foster care. She wouldn't even show up for court-ordered visits. Foster care was also really rough for me. I bounced around 3 different families, and it wasn't until the last one that I got any therapy to help me make sense of what had happened. A few days ago, out of nowhere, I got a Facebook message from my Richie and James. They said they've been thinking about me a lot and want to get to know me. They even mentioned that our mom talks about me sometimes and wonders how I'm doing. They said he'd like to start some kind of relationship if I'm open to it. And Richie said he would be willing to drive him and James to come and visit me wherever I am in the country. They both seemed nice in this message, and I don't have an issue with either of them. At first, I was going to ignore the message because I don't want anything to do with my biological family. But then a darker thought crossed my mind: this could be my one and only chance to expose my stepdad for the monster he truly is. I could finally tell my half-brothers everything he did to me, everything he put me through, and let the truth come crashing down on them. I know that if I do this, it'll probably destroy any chance of having a relationship with them, but honestly, I'm not sure I want one anyway. I told my friend that I was thinking about doing this, and he said it's a really bad idea that won't accomplish anything I want it to. He said it will most likely just cause them to think I'm bitter and mean and won't make them have any issues with their dad. But, while I know it would be a difficult thing to process, I would want to know if my dad was like that. I would want to know the truth about how my dad treated other children. I don't know how much they know about why I was removed into care. So, would I be the jerk if I went through with it? Update 1. Hey everyone, I wanted to come back and give you all an update. First off, thanks for all the advice and different perspectives. I really needed to hear them. So, after thinking a lot about what everyone said and after having a session with my therapist, I realized that my initial plan to tell my brothers everything about my stepdad wasn't really about helping them. It was more about me still holding on to the anger and hurt from my past, and that's not fair to them. A lot of you pointed out that they probably don't know the full story and are innocent in all this. And honestly, that hit hard. I decided to reach out to my Richie brother and told him I'd like to meet up. I didn't mention anything about our mom or the stepdad situation. I figured if we were going to start a relationship, it's better to take things slow and not dump all that heavy stuff on them right away. We ended up meeting at a cafe. I was super nervous, but when I saw them, it actually felt nice. They were both really nice, and we just talked about normal stuff, like what we've been up to, our favorite football teams, that sort of thing. It was weirdly easy to chat with them. At one point, James asked why I was placed in foster care. That caught me off guard, but I decided to keep it vague and just said that things were complicated at home back then, and that going into care was what was best for me at the time. James started pushing a bit for more details, but the Richie told him to knock it off, which honestly was a relief. By the end of it, I was glad I went. They asked if we could stay in touch, and I said yes. I'm still figuring out how much to share about what happened, but for now, I'm just trying to focus on building a relationship with them. I realize that while the past is important, it doesn't have to dictate how things go with them now. So yeah, thanks again to everyone who helped me see things clearer. I'm feeling a lot more hopeful about this, and I'm really glad I didn't just go with my gut reaction to tell them everything right off the bat. We'll see where things go from here, but I'm cautiously optimistic. Update 2. In the week since my last post I have met up with my brothers 3 more times. Once with both, and 2 times it has been just me and Richie. There seems to have been an instant bond between us, something that I didn't even know I wanted. I am loving hanging out with them, which is amazing because I didn't even think I ever wanted to see any of my family again. Never mind start to develop a good relationship with some of them. When I last met up with Richie alone, we went to go see a movie and then get something to eat. We spoke about our plans and what he does now. And we got talking about me, and foster care. I asked him what he had been told about me growing up. He said they haven't been told much, but that mom sometimes talks about me. I asked him what he remembered of me and why I was taken into care. He said he has some memories, fuzzy memories and clear memories. But he said he didn't know for certain what happened. He said he remembered a lot of fighting and arguing between me and SD. He said he had one very clear memory of me, but said he didn't know whether it was appropriate for him to share it or not. He asked me what I remembered, and I said it was difficult for me to talk about with people. He said he understood if I didn't want to get into it. I asked him what his clear memory was. He remembered me being about 8 years old, my SD stripping me naked and putting me in a dog's collar and making me eat dog food. He said he remembered his dad hitting me with his belt as I was eating out the dog bowl and crying. This actually happened many times for me growing up, but he said he only remembered it once. I started crying and he apologized for bringing it up, and I said don't. I was glad he at least remembered some things of my abuse. He said he guessed that the abuse by SD was the reason I was taken away. I said yeah. I asked if SD ever abused either of them and he said he hadn't ever. But he said he wasn't close to either my mom or his dad. He said they weren't ever amazingly loving people, but never abused them. He said he was sorry again. We spoke some more about our childhood. I felt safer talking about the abuse since he already remembered some of it. We spoke a bit more about it. I tried answering questions he had and he answered some of mine. He asked if the trauma still impacts me now, and I said yeah. I was open with him that I've attempted to end my own life multiple times because of it. He apologized for not being there for me, for not sticking up for me. I said nothing that happened was his fault, or my fault, and that we can't change the past. After we finished, we both went to our own homes. He messaged me saying he's glad I grew up and that I managed to keep living. He meant it sweetly, I think, even though it came off a little weird. I feel really amazing that I have a brother who seems to care about me. I couldn't even have imagined he would have liked me a few weeks ago. Update 3. Hey everyone, it's been 16 days since my last update, and I wanted to fill you in on how things have been going. I'm still working on building a relationship with my brothers, but it's been more complicated than I anticipated. While things started off surprisingly well, it's clear now that we're all navigating different versions of our shared past. After Richie opened up about his memory of the abuse, we've had more conversations about what I went through. I didn't want to keep tiptoeing around the subject, so I decided to share a little more, but I've been careful not to overwhelm them. James, though, has been acting a bit distant since then. I can't help but wonder if maybe he's struggling to process everything. I wouldn't blame him. It's a lot to take in, especially for someone who had no idea what was really going on back then. And I didn't even really tell him what happened, just that I was abused by his dad when I was young, and that's what caused me to go into foster care, and I only told him that much after he asked me again. Richie has been supportive, but I think even he's starting to feel the weight of it all. We had a pretty intense conversation a few days ago where he admitted that he's feeling conflicted. On one hand, he loves his dad, but on the other, he now knows what a monster he was to me. It's like he's torn between two realities, the dad he grew up with, who was far from perfect but never abusive to him, and the man who made my life hell. He hasn't said it directly, but I think part of him feels guilty for not experiencing the same horrors I did. I think he feels like I got it so he and James didn't. I keep reminding him it's not his fault, but I can tell it's weighing on him. Richie has been hanging out with me like 3 times a week though, and we have a good time together when we do hang out. As for James, he's been pulling away. I tried reaching out to see if he wanted to meet up, but he keeps making excuses. I get it, I probably dropped a lot on him. I've decided to give him some space and not push too hard. I've learned that everyone processes trauma and difficult truths in their own way, and maybe he needs time to wrap his head around everything. Despite all of this, I've started to feel a bit lighter. Sharing my story, even if it's just pieces of it, has been hard, but it's also been freeing. I spent so many years carrying this alone, and while I'm still cautious about how much I share, I'm beginning to realize that I deserve to be heard, too. I'm continuing therapy, and my therapist has been amazing at helping me figure out how to balance opening up with protecting myself. One thing I didn't expect was for my mom to reach out. She sent me a message on Facebook a few days ago, saying she wanted to talk about the past and that she misses me. It was the first time in years I've heard from her directly, and honestly, I'm torn about what to do. Part of me is still angry, furious, even, that she let all of this happen. But another part of me is curious. I don't know if she's finally seeing things clearly or if she just wants to smooth things over without actually addressing what happened. I haven't responded yet, and I'm not sure if I will. It's hard to know if she's changed or if it's just too little, too late. For now, I'm focused on my relationship with Richie and James. I'm hopeful that with time, James will come around and we can all find some peace with the past. But I'm also learning that not everything can be fixed, and that's okay. Some things, you just have to learn to live with. Thanks again for all the support. It's been really helpful to read through your comments and know that I'm not alone in this journey. Update 4. Hey everyone, I wanted to hop on and give a little update. First I wanted to say thank you to everyone who reached out and sent love. I really appreciate all the messages. So I felt really conflicted after my mom asked to meet me up. I really hadn't had much contact with her since I was removed. After really considering it and after reading the messages I got from you guys, I decided it was probably best to not respond to my mom. I decided not to meet up with her and just ignored her completely, as I think even messaging her would make my mental health spiral. It wasn't long after that James asked if I could meet up with him. Which I was happy about because I felt like he had been avoiding me since I revealed everything about what his dad and our mom did to me. Richie couldn't come even though I invited him. So it was just me and James. We went to the cinema. And we were having a good time, when he started talking about our mom and how much she wanted to meet me. I told him I just wasn't ready now, and wasn't sure if I'd ever be ready to meet her again. He started saying how it's selfish of me to not at least talk to her. And I tried to reiterate that I wasn't ready to talk to her and how what she did to me has caused so much pain and damage to me. He started to say something like she's not the same person anymore or something, but I cut him off. I tried to shut it down there and said I don't want to discuss it further, and if he was going to keep bringing it up I would just drop him back off at the train station. He called me a dickhead and told me to just drop him off, so I did that. And not long after that he blocked me on everything. Which I admit I was really upset about. Richie called me and told me that James was upset and had been speaking about me being selfish in the house. And Richie said that it was probably best for me and Richie to go low contact for a while, even though he said he supports me. He said he has to try and navigate it through his home life until he is able to move out and be independent. I understand that, even though it made me really sad. That happened about 2 weeks ago, and I haven't heard anything from any of them since then. Even though I've been sending memes to Richie on Instagram every other day or so. We had been sending each other memes constantly before and he hasn't even opened the messages. So honestly I don't know where to go from here. I feel pretty disappointed by everything. I don't know if this is the right place to ask for advice, but if anyone does have some advice on what to do. Update 5. I deleted my last account because I was going into a very dark place, but I have proof that I am the op if anyone wants it. It's been about 4 months since I last posted on Reddit. I left things in a really bad place. Shortly after my last update, I attempted to off me. That wasn't the first time, but I truly thought I was past that. I've recovered, and I'm so glad my attempt failed. My God, if anyone reading this has even the slightest thought like that, please speak to someone. You are worth it. The world is better with you in it. I said this somewhere on my last account, but before Richie and James came into my life, I never wanted a family. I never craved it, never needed it. But after they did and then left, all I could think about was how I'd screwed everything up again. I hated myself for it. I tore myself apart over how I ruined everything, but now, in a better place, I can see I did nothing wrong. At the time, though, it didn't feel that way. Just over 6 weeks ago, Richie reached out to me again. He said things had settled at home, and he was hoping we could start again. I told him, politely, because I really don't blame him, that unless he was ready for a full relationship with me, I couldn't do it. I couldn't live through another breakup. I know that's not the right word, but I just can't think of a better one. I said if he wasn't ready, I wouldn't hold it against him, but I couldn't be put through this again. He told me he was ready, and he promised me that if he had to make a choice, he'd choose me over them. I asked him about finances and how he'd manage, but he said he had it sorted. At the time, I didn't realize, but later I found out that Richie and James' paternal grandfather had passed away and left them both a substantial amount of money. So we started again, and it felt like no time had passed between us at all. He told me that I was all anyone spoke about in the house for about 2 weeks after everything fell apart. How I was selfish, and mean, and evil. How my mom had posted rant after rant about me on Facebook, wondering how she raised such a selfish, evil person. I didn't know, because I haven't checked her Facebook in a while, although I used to obsessively. If I had the energy for it, I'd go on and comment something like, "You didn't raise such a selfish, evil person because I was removed into foster care because of the abuse you and SD put me through. Mother of the year." But honestly, I don't think I could cope with the fallout of it. Anyway, Richie said he wasn't going to tell his parents about getting back in contact with me. He said he wanted to move out and then go NC with them to support me. I told him I didn't care if he told them or not, or if he cut them off or not. That was his choice. The only thing I needed from him was consistency. Either he was in my life, or he wasn't. No more back and forth. Since then, things with Richie have been going really well. Better than I ever expected, honestly. He's starting to feel like my best friend, which is something I never thought I'd say about a family member. We see each other all the time, and it just feels right. Like I finally have someone who understands me and actually wants to be in my life without conditions. I don't think I realized how much I was missing that until I had it. For a while, Richie kept our contact a secret. He hadn't told anyone at home that we were talking again, and I was fine with that. It wasn't about hiding. It was just easier for him. But somehow, James found out, and it caused a lot of issues for Richie back at home. From what Richie told me, James wasn't happy about it at all. I don't know exactly what was said, but it was enough that Richie decided to speed up his timeline to move out. He was planning on waiting a bit longer, but with all the tension at home, he just wanted out as soon as possible. James still hasn't reached out to me, and honestly, I don't expect him to. I've made my peace with that. I hope that one day, he'll be able to see past the loyalty he has for our parents and realize that I'm not the evil person they've made me out to be. But I also know that he might never get there, and that's something I can't control. People believe what they want to believe, and right now, he's not ready to see the truth. Maybe he never will be. The good thing is, despite James' reaction, no one has actually tried to stop Richie from seeing me. That, at least, is something. Most importantly, I'm feeling so much better about life again. After everything, I'm finally starting to believe that I deserve to be happy. I don't know what the future holds, but for the first time in a long time, I feel hopeful.